Right, we've still got some training to do before I feel comfortable moving on. Slender getting to level 8 shouldn't take too long, especially not when we're so close to it at the moment. Well, he didn't resist us, but it's still gonna take quite a few shots to bring him down. It's not like we need to worry about any counterattacks as we take him down bit by bit. And thankfully, this is the last bit of grinding for Flender for a while. Right, didn't learn any new offensive moves at level 8. Flender definitely won't be able to add much of anything when we get to the flying gym. Annoying, but not much we can really do about that. I'm certainly not going to keep on grinding for levels up to 12 like in the first generation. We've got places to go, badges to earn, and I don't think Falkner is worth a level 12 team. Not a great exchange rate between a level 4 and a level 6. Still, our guy survived. I suppose that's all that matters. Right, too much to hope that Kaban would have enough in him for another win there. Still, he got close, that's got to count for something. As does the fact that Stewart didn't get absolutely mangled by someone he got tagged in to fight. Again, we're still pretty early in the game, but it feels worth mentioning just the same, after all. It's the groundwork at the start that can help bring you victory in the end, or at the very least make things easier for you later on. And while you can say what you want about my skill level in various games and competitions, I've got some pretty solid patience levels. Hell, if I didn't have some strong patience, then I wouldn't have bothered to work on clips that have nothing but grinding in them. I would just skip to the interesting parts, but that would feel like a bit of a disservice to the game, really. There's a reason outside of padding that most Japanese role-player games back in the day had random encounters, because in some small ways, it helps to make things a little different from one playthrough to the next. While there are still things that can be memorized, there's more of an element of chance that helps to make replaying the game still interesting on some levels. And when you add in just how many Pokemon are possible to have on your team, and the chance to randomly decide, no, wait, I think I'll take this guy instead of that one this time, it's a pretty good formula to encourage playing it over and over again. It's nothing groundbreaking, but part of me can't help wondering if game designers these days forgot about some of those sorts of things when they started removing the whole turn-based element of some role-player games, and many others got rid of random encounters. Hell, Pokemon has been trying to get rid of grinding in general. Sure, those sort of things can be annoying if they aren't done well, and I have nothing against innovation. It just feels like some trends in some gaming genres were changed simply because it became popular to change, not because it was a good idea for that particular game. For example, Gears of War did a good job of thinking through the cover mechanics and the rate of healing when you take cover. But how many games just mindlessly copied Gears of War without understanding why it worked so well for that series? From the enemy variety to the environments. Well, We're certainly lucky with poisoning the enemy at the moment. Not that it really makes up for the fact that Lurker is a good deal less leveled up than Gaban was when I made the decision to make the switch. Hell, there are two reasons I made the switch here. First off, we're already very familiar with Weedle, Kakuna, and Beedrill. We are not so familiar with Spinarak and Ariados, since they are bugs that were introduced for the second generation. Since Lurker here is a new poison bug type, it feels right to try him on for our team for a while, as opposed to letting an old familiar one gain some trainer wins later on. It doesn't hurt that Weedle and Spinarak are both bug and poison, so we've still got the same type coverage for whatever that's worth. The second is that both Weedle and Caterpie end their evolutionary chain at level 10. Sure, they have 3 forms, but unfortunately, they reach their best form so fast that they wind up feeling like nothing special, especially when you get later and later in the game. Whereas Spinarak has only 2 forms, and the second form comes up around level 20 somewhere. That doesn't change the fact that bug type was pretty underwhelming in the series for a long time, and sooner or later, we're gonna want to replace our bug type with something that has a bit more bite to it. It helps give me the impression, though, that Lurker is going to stay with us for a few gyms, and maybe get to actually contribute to some of them. If only I could remember the second gyms nearly as, or at least the second generation's gyms, nearly as well as the first generation's. Then I'd have a better idea of how to consider things as we push forward. Assuming I ever do get to push forward. Definitely feels like Lurker is doing a better job against Pidgeys than Gaban was. Or maybe that is just my mind playing tricks on me or something. I wouldn't be surprised since we're 9 clips into this LP, and I still haven't gotten to the first gym yet. Maybe a bit too cocky to go with Lurker when we're this hurt. Stuart, time to get some more action just before we go to the Pokemon Center again. Well, at least Stuart wasn't sent into yellow condition here. It certainly felt like a close thing, though. Definitely feels like this team is in need of a tank of one kind or another. Then I can't think of any game in the Pokemon series where you're allowed to grab a tank of some kind before you even hit the first gym. Hell, part of what made fighting against Brock in the first generation a special thing was the fact that our first big challenge was finding a way to deal with a tanky type of Pokemon when we had very few options. If you did not pick the grass or water starter, you had to think things through and train a good bit for that fight. At least before the Fire Red, Leaf Green remakes on the Game Boy Advance gave Charmander Steel Claw for that specific purpose. When I learned about that little addition made, I felt oddly insulted. Taking on Brock with a Charmander, Nidoran male, and a Butterfree was possible enough for me as a kid when the rules were less well explained, so why make things easier when going that way in the remake? I wouldn't call it downright infuriating, but still, it felt like they cheapened a potential bit of in-game storytelling by making the underdog of the first gym not so much of an underdog anymore. Anyway, since Lurker wasn't doing all that much damage anyway, figured I'd let Flender come back for a bit. It's not like we have to worry about running out of ammo, since he's pretty fresh at the moment after all. definitely no need to worry about taking that one down in the least. I'm probably gonna have to run to the Pokemon Center again after this fight, and based on the raw footage, that's gonna be around when I save the game next. Which means this is gonna be another clip where we just grind like hell for all of it. Can't help hoping I'm wrong and that we'll make it to the next town before the clip is done, but that's probably wishful thinking, especially since I want our entire team to be the same level when we get to the first gym. That's certainly a lower level than we were when we hit the first gym in the first generation, though. But what can I say? That's what feels comfortable for me here. Anyway, it seems I was wrong when I was gonna save. I guess I'm not as good at reading my own footage as I thought. Hell, maybe Lurker is gonna make it to level 8 before I end up saving. Hold on, I'm just gonna check the raw footage and see what happens later on in this clip. Son of a bitch. Apparently I misremembered what level I'd start to move towards the next town. Because, I was thinking it would be level 8. But, no, I'm apparently trying to get everyone to level 9 instead. I'm sorry for, making people think we were gonna get moving faster than we actually are. But to be fair, I recorded footage of this game over a year ago. And I'm going off my memory of how the entire playthrough went as I try to predict how things go. That's part of the problem with having so many games on my to-do list. Sometimes it just takes a lot longer than I expected to get in the right mood to get a given game started in terms of commentary. Well, at least for the most part when I decide to start something I finish it. I've certainly got an obscene number of finished LPs on this channel. Right, we've got another run to the Pokemon Center in our future here. Again, we've been to the Cherry Grove Pokemon Center so many times we may as well have a bed there. Oh, there's not a chance in hell I'm keeping Lurker out there when he's only got 1 HP left. And that's not even getting into the fact that Weedle resists his only attack move. And great. Now I'm trying to remember just how long it took for me to move from Viridian City to Pewter in the first generation. Part of me wants to say that I stayed there for less time, but then Viridian, our first time, gave us more to do, like our second battle with our rival, and we had to go through Viridian Forest before we got to Pewter, and we also had some differing ground to grind in. And again, I don't remember much of anything about the geography of any generation after the first one. I just know that when we finally get to working on the third generation of Pokemon, there's going to be a lot of water. More than even the generation where we outright do things on a Hawaii knockoff island chain. But again, those are very much in the future. Hell, I have no clue how many games I'm going to do between Pokemon Generation 2 and its remake Soul Silver. Much less when I'm going to get around to working on Pokemon Emerald. Hell, I wasn't even expecting to get hungry enough to finally get back to Pokemon that I'd do it while I was also LPing 2 other games at the same time. It's impossible to know when the itch is going to crop up. Just how many unconscious birds and bugs have we left in this small section of grass, anyway? I would probably worry about the ecosystem around here if it wasn't for the fact that Pokemon is very vague about what wild Pokemon eat. At one point, they implied that creatures like Pidgey ate creatures like Caterpie like a normal ecosystem. But when they also acted like every Pokemon has some level of sentience, they tried to gloss over that as much as possible and add to the superpowered animals somehow eating conventional animals, as if the mere existence of supernatural birds wouldn't mean that non-supernatural birds would be completely screwed. And yes, Pidgey and Spearow count as supernatural, even if the game considers them normal type. I suppose non-Pokemon plants and non-Pokemon bugs are easy enough to imagine existing in the Pokemon world, but fish, birds, and the various other animals, I call bullshit. Granted, it's not the games that are doing anything to really strain my suspension of disbelief here. They can certainly get away with not giving us all that much detail about the world around us, especially when we're playing on a Game Boy Color at the moment, or at least an emulated one. But the anime got pretty self-contradictory at times. The manga seemed to go back and forth if Pokemon ate other Pokemon or not, or if people died or any of that. At least if I remember it right. And considering the fact that some people have told me that Pokemon stopped trying to genuinely expand after Generation 5 and just went the lazy way since they knew they could get away with it, I don't trust the games to really do a great job of painting a great picture of the world we're interacting with. So, my best source of information of how the Pokemon world might actually work is based on fan fiction, which is just a bunch of random people who happen to enjoy the franchise deciding on some common themes and elements as they work on the Pokemon world. Not great, but it's not like Pokemon has ever really tried to be taken super seriously. It just managed to scratch the right itches to become the single most profitable franchise on the planet, and has stayed that way for an absurd number of years, despite Game Freak losing a lot of confidence over that period of time. Again, it's not that I don't like Pokemon in general, otherwise I wouldn't gladly go through a number of the games there. I just have a bit of mental dissonance, since I've known much better writing and gameplay from a lot of different series, and none went anywhere near as successful as Pokemon. Hell, Call of Duty, pretty infamous really, had the best chance of competing, and even at its best it never really felt like a major contender for the throne that Pokemon made. It's just kind of funny to think about. Just like it's funny to think about the sheer number of wounded Pokemon we leave in our wake when we're grinding in these games. I should probably think of heading to the Pokemon Center again soon, but I suppose since I'm trying to get everyone to level 9 now, that means we've got some more freedom in switching around before pulling back to heal. Oh, so close to that level up there, Stuart. Possibly pushing my luck here. And there, our first level 9 member of the team. Just 5 more teammates to push to that point. May as well heal, since it doesn't cost anything and it's so close. Sure, I'm not planning on sending Stuart out again in the rest of this clip, but the poor guy got worn down to the point he's in red condition, I'd say he certainly deserves medical attention. Really hard to tell just how helpful poisoning this or that enemy is. Hell, poison type isn't that great of a typing as far as I can tell. I just happen to like some Pokemon that are poison. I like Nidoran and Bulbasaur. Those are the first two that popped into mind at the very least. But it's not like I can go out of my way to give them poison attacks. I just occasionally send them to fight against poisonous enemies. Otherwise, I only pay attention to their other typing. Really a shame, considering how many poison types I end up liking when I know that type is pretty damn low on the tier list. I know with the sheer number of types there are in Pokemon, it's pretty much impossible to make all of them good or great, but still, a bit annoying when you like some Pokemon that you very much want to keep going back to, but yet their typing kind of helps push them a lot lower on the capabilities than, yeah, let's just move on. Well, Flender, let's see how many fights you can go through before we need to switch you out. The curse of being a poison type that only has a bug attack this early on. The two worst typings linked together. Right! Second fight and I'm switching Flender out. He is just not going to be able to hold his own in a good long while here. Even with a level advantage, he just doesn't have an attack with enough fight to deal with birds. And again, the first gym is a bird gym. Well, at least we heal more damage than a Caterpie can inflict. That's gotta be worth something. And that something means we're switching out again. Sorry, looks like the next clip is gonna have more grinding. Still, I hope that we'll get to the next town at some point there, but I don't know yet how many bits of raw footage I'm going to put into that clip. I'm just looking at the absolute next bit. Yeah, that's definitely enough grinding for one clip. Back to the Pokemon Center to heal and save, and possibly learn if the local nurse has a name other than Joy. I'm sure you will.